Looks like we have some people there. I might as well get started. Hello, everyone, as you come in. It is Saturday evening here where I am, the 18th of September 2021, and I can already hear people saying, "Wow, what happened to you?" Well, I wish I could say I got into a big fight and you ought to see the other guy. I think I said that once before when I went through this procedure, but that's not really, yeah, that's not really the situation. And I don't go into any details about what this actually is. Let me pull this up a little closer. I can see that it's just a little too far away. That way, okay, how's that? I think that's a little better. Uh, but I was exposed to some things back many years ago in particular situations, and about every 5 or 6 years, I have to go through. Yeah, you're pretty close there, whoever said that, but I won't get into any details on it. They every 5 or 6 years they have to go and cut some things off of me. I don't know if you can see my arm here. You can see this right there. I have some of those on my shoulder, and mostly this side of myself here, my ear, and this side. Got a little bit on this side as it splashed over, but at any rate, so I have to go through a chemical and excision treatment about every 6 years or so. So I look kind of bad. That's one reason why I haven't been on. A lot of people have asked me to come on, and I mean, I still look kind of nasty as it is, but you should have seen me a few days ago. Hello, Roosevelt. Nice to see you. So actually, it's a lot better now. Yeah, it's pre. Actually, there, foolishness was that your name? Foolish Oni. Yeah, it's not quite there, but it's close. And of course, this happened many years ago, so it gets progressively worse every time they have to do it. It's kind of more nasty. So at any rate, yeah, I look beat up. Like I said, I wish I could. I wish I could say it was. Worse on the other guy, but no, it's just a medical procedure I went through. So I'm still not back to where I'd like to be, but I'm also not really vain. Uh, not as much as maybe some people would be. I'm not saying I'm not, but I thought I'd go ahead and come on tonight because it has been a while. Uh, I could use makeup, but then I'd be accused of doing that. So I thought, nah, I'll just do it. Okay. So at any rate, let me get to the subject at hand. And there's so much going on, as you know. Uh, you're probably wondering what I'm talking about with the title to this video. I don't think that word means what you think it means. If you think back to a movie called The Princess Bride back in 1987, 88, 89, somewhere in there, you might remember that there was this little villain guy. The villain of the movie was called Vizzini, right? Little guy who talked with a lisp like that, and was really nasty, right? And then there was one of the heroes in the movie, Indigo Montoya. If you remember him, he's the very debonair Spanish guy who says, "My name is Indigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." That guy, right? Okay. As a matter of fact, the fellow that played that part just died here a year or two ago. But at any rate, so you may remember in the movie, Vizzini, the small villain, would continually say, "Inconceivable, inconceivable." Do y'all remember that? Let's see if this chat is running the way it's supposed to. Mandy, yeah, right. That's the guy that Mandy Patinkin or Patinkin, however you say his name. Yeah. So you might remember Vizzini. He would say inconceivable, and Indigo Montoya kept hearing him say every time he'd say inconceivable. This Vizzini guy, Indigo would look at him, and finally he got kind of aggravated about it. And Indigo Montoya says to him, when he says inconceivable again, Vizzini, Indigo says to him, "You know, I don't think that word means what you think it means." Do you remember that part of the scene for those of you who saw that? Yeah. Yeah, Billy Crystal was in it too, but he didn't bring that particular line in. So at any rate, what does that have to do with anything? Well, I'm not even going to call him by his rank or his position. Mark Milley, you should all know who he is. Mark Milley, the Fred Flintstone. Actually, Fred Flintstone has more honor, integrity, and smarts than Mark Milley does. But just so you know who I'm talking about, the guy who's telling everybody that they need to do the right thing, right? And yet he can't even keep his weight under control because he's such a gluttonous. Well, hey Jesse, how you doing? Nice to see you, BP Earthwatch. So Mark Milley has said a couple things in the last week that I just can't stand anymore. Well, actually, he said everything he says I can't stand, uh, and I'm going to get into some depth on that. But let's talk about his word righteous. Have you heard him say that at least, twice in the last few days? If I had my whole setup, I could, play a couple of clips for you. But you may remember this. The first thing he said, where he used the word righteous, was on this strike on this poor family in Afghanistan on the drone strike, which in fact they had gotten the intel not from the normal procedure, but from the Taliban itself and from aerial surveillance. So they weren't getting it from the proper channels like they said they were. And the Taliban knew that this guy was actually someone who, this Afghan man, was actually somebody who had been working for the Americans. And he had his family with him. And the Taliban said he was the guy that was the, ISIS-K that was part of the bombing, and that they were going to do another one, right? So dumbass Mark Milley and his IC and all those people take this information from the Taliban and don't even double check it. They just use aerial surveillance and they drone this man and his family. So basically what they did was the Taliban killed, through American power, one of their enemies who was our ally. That's what happened. And Mark Milley, during this thing, as he's trying to deny this, he said, well, there were multiple explosions, which shows that there were more explosives and all this kind of BS. He says it was a righteous, that was the word he used. It was a righteous strike, a righteous action. Really, Marky? Really, Marky? Marky? And you all wonder why I have no respect for flag officers from what I've seen. Oh, there are people out there that will extol flag officers all day long. Not me. And this is a perfect example as to why. Well, that's not the only time he said it. Just yesterday, you know about the situation with the demonstration that was going to happen in D.C. today over the fact that they are keeping these political prisoners that should have been released on bail at the very minimum a long time ago. This is Banana Republic, Marxist, I'll just say it, Gulag, Siberian treatment, Soviet treatment, Chinese Communist Party criminal treatment of people that by and large went there for redress of grievance and did actually nothing wrong. Those who did do things wrong, like destroy property, beat up on somebody, whatever, different story. But we all know what's happening there, right? Well, this thing was a setup by the FBI, and if you've been looking at the pictures from there, you can see all these FBI agents. One was caught, of course, with a weapon, and the Capitol Police come over, and then they try to, make it look like they're really arresting him, but he was an FBI agent there on the Antifa side. And then you had FBI agents looking like the conservative Trump supporters, but they stand out. Well, that's the one we're talking about, right? That demonstration. Well, yesterday, Mark Milley comes out and says, I am prepared to do a righteous action to prevent this new insurrection. He used the word righteous again. Little Mark Milley, the calorie consuming. There's so many words I'd like to call him, so many names. You can't even control your own gluttony. Expect everybody else to follow the rules and you can't even follow your own rules? I don't think you know what the word righteous means, Mark Milley. I don't think you know, I don't think that word means what you think it means, Mark Milley, you disgusting disgrace. And you, Austin, are the same. Now, along with that, we still have the situation with Lieutenant Colonel Scheller going on. There was a lieutenant colonel in the Army that just resigned his commission over this whole GMI thing, rightly so. I feel bad that he's losing all of his time and all of that, but I've been there. I understand, okay? Sometimes you just have to go with the flow with this lieutenant colonel in the Army. Well, Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, the Marine lieutenant colonel, he pointed out that his senior leaders in the DOD, in the Pentagon, are not being held accountable for not, and he didn't talk about the criminal actions. He was just talking about them not being proficient leaders in the military world, just political icons who run around with a Christmas tree on their chest because they give them to each other at that level. Well, Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, of course, he's probably going to receive, at the very least, non-judicial punishment, and I think they're threatening him with courts martial, and some other things. Regardless, some things are happening there, and I don't know what the end result is going to be. But the point is, he called out his leadership for their lack of accountability and their incompetence. Now, don't kid yourself. I was in the military. I understand about, soldiers, particularly officers, talking publicly about the leadership, all the way up to the National Command Authority, including the president. I understand that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to argue that point. Okay? That's not the issue. The issue is this. He's right. Look what they did in Afghanistan. Look what they did leaving Americans behind. Look what they did killing an American ally using faulty intelligence from the Taliban to take out one of our own. Despite how you feel about Lieutenant Colonel Scheller jumping the chain of command, which is essentially what he did, all right, let's look at something else. They go after him and others who are denying that, who will not take this GMI. There's another soldier also who brought out information about the drone program and how it's been used to kill innocents since its inception, which is true. And do you know that those drone operators get ribbons, silver stars, meritorious service medals for sitting in a drone seat and taking out people that they've never seen face to face? So that soldier was right. Where he made his mistake was taking classified materials out. That's where he made his mistake. Regardless, he wouldn't have fixed it in the system. So I understand he, like Snowden, had to go outside the system because the system is corrupt to the core, which I've been calling out for at least 3 decades. They're evil, evil, and they are not on your side. They are for themselves only. So, we have Lieutenant Colonel Scheller. Again, however you feel, whether he violated the UCMJ or not, the point is, the hypocrisy. Look at this. Mark Milley calls the Chinese Joint Chiefs of Staff head, the chairman of the Chinese Army, military, similar to his position, and warns him that Trump may attack. And Milley turns around and goes after Scheller? And Milley didn't do it just one time. He did it twice. It's verified, and he admits it. And there are people defending him. Where are the defenders for Scheller? I don't know Scheller. I thought it was kind of interesting. I saw one of his videos where he's explaining, why he's doing what he's doing and where he is and all the difficulties he's running into. I pray that his family stays together. I know what it's like to put your family in the fire. It's really hard. But he had a chessboard in front of him. And he said, "Your move." And I looked at the chessboard, and it was really interesting. It's a very common, classic move. And it's his turn apparently on the board, or their turn. It's DOD's turn. And he says, "It's your move." Very classy way he presented that. But my point is, yeah, they go after this sergeant, for this E5 sergeant, apparently, for giving information out on the inhumanity and the criminality of the drone program. They go after him. They go after Scheller, and there have been other officers they've gone after. They tried going after me for a few things. I was in a little luckier situation. But I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I'll just say, how come they're going after Scheller for jumping the chain of command and being critical of his leaders, and yet they're not doing the same for Milley at a much more critical level? He could have started a nuclear exchange with his asinine behavior. And I don't like Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump. It just shows that Milley was more of a political hack than he said. Remember, than he pretends to be. Remember when he went out there with Trump to the church when they cleared the area there at Lafayette Square, and then he apologized for it, saying we should never take part in politics in the military. And look what he did. And I might throw in here also, as several other commentators have pointed out, there were others that were involved in this, and Pelosi talked about it right when it happened, the second time, about her dealing with the military on this situation and the nukes. Today, if this government was legitimate, Pelosi and Milley would be in prison in cuffs today, and everybody else that was associated with that. And again, I don't like Trump. I think Trump is a deceiver, and this is another play to make him look like a victim. He's very strong in the polls, because everybody thinks he's going to be a savior. Yeah, HRC too. That information has come out again already, right? Durham finally indicted somebody, the attorney, right? Yeah, for HRC, developing this whole Russiagate thing. I don't know if Durham has anything more coming. I think this is a good step. But the DOJ's not going to let him go much further. Do you understand that? America isn't going to let him go down that road too far. So, Marky Milley, I don't think you understand what that word really means. I think that you've corrupted the word righteous. And it doesn't surprise me a bit. And I'd love to just sit here and call you names for the next hour, and all I could do it. Yeah, Trump sold us out. I know. This whole thing over the GMI and all this, anybody who has half a brain can see where this thing is and what it's being used for. And I'm not going to talk about it here tonight, other than to say that it is a military kinetic attack in 21st century warfare. We're not seeing armies. The armies are hiding behind white coats, pretending to be your friends, worried about your health, even though they're the same people that have talked about population reduction for the last 30, 40 years. Does that make any sense? They want to give you something that's going to save your life, but they think the earth's overpopulated. Does that make any sense to anybody? And you damn politicians, even Jim Jordan, I came down on him the other day He's sitting there jacking his jaws, and I had to hit him up on Twitter and say, you know, you're a do-nothing too. What are you talking about? All you do is jack your jaws. The states need to get together. The senators and the representatives in these conservative, constitutional-oriented states, and I'm not saying they're really good at it, these different states, but the U.S. senators and congressmen need to go to their state governors and legislatures and have a little talk with them and come up with a plan to stand against this federal government, which is illegal, out of control, unconstitutional, and tyrannical. It's way past time. The final arbiter of all this, as I often talk about, is the people. But by and large, I mean, we're starting to see some grassroots kickback here, nowhere near what it is in France or Germany or England or even Australia, because Americans are so, oh, my country, oh, you know, it's the greatest country in the world. We've got all these constitutional rights. Really? Not if you don't stand firm in them and belligerently demand them, that the government recognize them. The government doesn't give them to you, but damn sight better recognize them. And they've gone against the charter that we the people gave to them. Totally. They need to be wiped out. The entire federal government needs to be reduced to ashes. Okay. That's one rant. Yeah, we're probably under COG, Roosevelt. You're right. Continuity of government operation has probably been going on, as you mentioned some time ago when we had a conversation. It's probably been going on since Trump got into office. Yeah, I agree with that. And this is all wrong. And you know I don't like Trump. But again, I think that he was all part of the plan to do all. I mean, look what he did. Okay, and I'll hit Trump up for a minute. Right? Wouldn't go after Clinton after he said he was going to. The bump stop bans didn't really investigate the Vegas massacre. As a matter of fact, it was probably a sacrifice that he arranged for his god Moloch. The situation with, of course, the whole shutdown and the whole idiocy that he's allowed Fauci and the CDC and the NIH and the FDA not so much, but to some extent, and WHO and all the rest of those, what they've done. Shutting down a country for a flu virus? Oh, but the Lincoln people over, or whatever the name of that university was that Fauci brought these stupid computer statistics from, said that we were going to have 2 million deaths. Really? And you're going to shut down the country for that? You stupid ass Trump? No, you did it on purpose because you are part of the Great Reset. And you are probably going to come back in one way or another. I don't know how that's going to work out, but you're in there somewhere. You deceitful, evil, whatever you are. Okay. I'm not going to get into all the FEMA. No, FEMA is still in control. Wait a second. People keep saying that to excuse Trump. You don't understand how the government works. The president can activate FEMA and he can deactivate FEMA. Just because Trump put FEMA in charge, he doesn't lose his authority to take that delegation back. It's called delegated authority. Stop blaming what Trump did on FEMA. You guys don't understand your government. No wonder we're in such trouble. Yes, I'm upset. What happened to my face? I explained at the beginning of the video. Had some minor surgery done. Now, Roosevelt asked me, apparently the other day, well, actually, I saw the show. David Knight gave an excellent show on the meaning of resisting government tyranny. And he was talking specifically about, and those of you who don't like spiritual discussions, feel free to leave now. You can go, it won't hurt my feelings. But it definitely bears on what's happening today. So David did a great show on Romans 13, where all the Christians like to say, oh, we're supposed to obey our governments. Look at Romans 13. Now, Roosevelt, this isn't going to be as in-depth as you would like. We'll do that again later, okay? Did I see a Mr. Hunt in here? What is he doing here? Roosevelt, did you just... Mike Hunt is here? You can boot his ass off of here if he's the guy I think he is. Let me look here for a minute. I think I came down on him before. I'm pretty sure he's the same guy. Mike Hunt. Mike Hunt. Well, I see you say I've blown a fuse. Roosevelt, you can throw Mike Hunt off. I think I had a run-in with him about 4 years ago, if he's the same guy. And even if he isn't, for that statement, which doesn't really lend anything to the conversation, you can boot his ass off. You've got my permission. Thank you. So at any rate, David Knight gave this excellent introduction and explanation. Because so many Christians are saying we have to obey the government no matter what, even if they order us to do evil. Really? No, the entire scriptures are about standing against evil and resisting it at all costs. If you've heard me give my Eisenman series, if you've looked at my religion series, you'll understand where I stand on this. First of all, Romans 13, the way it's written, because of course the Romans would say that they're righteous, correct, Millie? Correct, little Marky? The Romans would have thought that they were righteous. So in Romans 13, it talks about God has established governments to, go after the evildoers, to make sure that the evildoers don't get the upper hand and that they can mete out punishment, and that's God's punishment. Well, David Knight did a really good retort on that. You know what he said? That is the parameter where we follow the government. When it's doing righteous government, when it's protecting the innocent, when it is prosecuting the evil, then by definition in Romans 13, you can support that government. But that's not what the Romans were doing. And I'll get to that in a minute. They were killing anybody that got in their way. Look at our government. They just went along with the murder of a man and his family in Afghanistan, and that's just one drone strike. There have been more civilians, wedding parties, men, women, and children that are totally innocent, wiped off the face of the earth by this insane program, right? Is that a just government? Is that executing God's will and going after evil? They don't even clean up their own mess in D.C. That thing is not just a swamp. It's a putrid cesspool. No, it's worse than that. It's a putrid latrine. And they don't clean themselves up. So this is not the type of government that Romans 13 explains. This is an evil government just like Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, Soviet Union, or back 2,000 years ago, Babylon, or even for that matter, Judea under the rule of the Romans and in fact the Herodians. And you're not under any obligation to give any, and I mean any, allegiance to such a government. Not even under the definition as it's explained in Romans 13. You do not give every government obeisance on everything they do. Because if they're doing evil, you're commanded to stand against it. Look at Abednego, Meshach, and Shadrach getting thrown into the fiery furnace. Look at Daniel. Look at Jeremiah. Look at Jesus standing against the establishment of his day. And that's been skewed a little bit because the Romans had a hand on that. So let's get to this other part about Romans 13, which is another reason why I have no respect for so much of the Pauline epistles. And if you don't like that, bye, okay? I've done all the study. I have some questions about James and the Jerusalem Council. We could get into some real deep discussions on this, and a lot of it's in my Eisenman and Religion series. I will say, I don't trust James totally either, the brother of Jesus. I don't. But I'm not going to get into that today. What we're going to get into is the other reason why Romans 13 is suspect. I've talked about it before. When the Romans took out Jerusalem, they allowed certain religious sects to continue. They destroyed Qumran, and they went after the Essenes. And the ones that didn't leave and flee to Pella, they killed outright. Some fled to Egypt, and then Rome found them later. What happened was, in order to continue in the Pauline Christianity of the time, which did take control of basic Christian movement, Paul was a Roman citizen. He was a Herodian family member. He was doing Rome's bidding, and he even said so. It's throughout the Pauline epistles. And I'm not going to get into any deep discussion on all those. I've already done it. But I'm going to home in on Romans 13. So, since the Romans had a problem with this Christian movement, which in that time was known as the Nozri movement or the Messianic movement, to try to kick out the Kittim, which are the Romans, they were fighting the Romans. It was a time of war, not pastoral Palestine. It was a war situation, which also bears for the relationship between James and Paul and why, the truth is somewhere probably in between. But regardless, in order for that Pauline Christianity to continue unscathed, in other words, the Romans allowing them to continue on, Paul put in this thing about obeying the government. Because the Messianic movement was opposed to Rome. And now the new thing was to be friends with Rome. Friendship with the world is enmity with God, as James put it. So, the other aspect of this is, first of all, we're not following Romans 13 by the spirit of it, if you can even say that, because it talks about just government, going after evil. Well, our government isn't doing that, and neither were the Romans. And the second aspect of it is that was put in there by Paul, apparently, or somebody for Paul, possibly Josephus, so that they could defang the Messianic movement in saying that you're supposed to submit to earthly rules, earthly rulership, earthly gods like Caesar, who proclaim themselves to be God. Does that sound just and right? No. We are to withstand evil. If you see the government killing a baby, you're supposed to stop it if you possibly can. At least try to do something. But you don't because, it's the law of the land. And you don't even know what, I'm not talking to most of my people here understand what I'm talking about. The law of the land is not as we've been explained, as the way explained to us. The law of the land is actually an entirely different concept that, like the rainbow, has been absconded by evil forces. Killing, theft, political corruption, etc., is evil. And if the government does it, you are not to follow it. You are to resist it with every fiber of your being and ability. Nonsense to these Christians that say we are to bow the knee to this criminal, evil, tyrannical, authoritarian power. Wrong. But it says don't resist evil. Well, guess who wrote that in there? And what were the circumstances? You have to understand that when you read the Bible, you're reading stuff that happened 2,000 to 4,500 years ago and longer. You don't understand their culture. You don't understand the people. You don't understand the language. You don't understand the idioms. And you don't take into consideration the audience that it was given to. All the people that want to follow the Bible think that the Bible is the, and I'm going to make some enemies here, as I always do. is the infallible Word of God. Well, there are a lot of contradictions in there, and I'm not going to spend time on those tonight. But a lot of them don't make any sense. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you might want to read Ezekiel, for instance. All right, just as an example. You might want to read where in Isaiah where it talks about God, sick of sacrifices and the blood of bullocks and all. Well, I thought he commanded that. Just as some examples, just real quick. So, you are not required to follow unrighteous, evil, tyrannical government. You are supposed to exemplify the attributes of God, which are righteousness, justice, mercy, even at the peril of your own life. So, the Romans forced this into Romans 13, submission to governmental authority. And then the same thing happened in the Council of Yavna for the Jews, the rabbinic Talmudic, who became the Talmudic Jews, rabbinic Judaism in 90 AD. That's why rabbinic Judaism was allowed to continue on, because they made these concessions to the Romans. Isn't that interesting? So I know that's not in the depth that you wanted me to go to, Roosevelt. I didn't prepare any, real detailed notes. I mean, we could go back through all those different scriptures about like Daniel and Samson, all those different types of things. David, for instance, Jesus Christ himself, what really happened in the Garden of Gethsemane, as opposed to the very traditional concepts. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw it together tonight because of this thing with Millie. I don't think that word means what you think it means. Do I get hot under the collar, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, because we're in a very short time now. The governments have come after us. You're going to see your loved ones die like flies here before much longer. A lot of people got placebos because they don't want this to come on too fast, but it's going. We're already seeing the results. And I'm taking a chance saying this here because you know what they end up doing, right? How you react has to be defensively. But you better not stand around while the innocents get slaughtered or get thrown into prison or get forced to take something into them against their will. If you do, you are complicit, just like the Nazi soldiers were, who said, we were just following orders. And those damn FBI agents sitting there on the mall today. I've never seen such a disgusting group in my life. To think of all the sacrifices that were done by not them, but by their fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers trying to bring together a world, a country, where freedom reigns, the right to redress of grievance. We're having people storm government buildings all over the country. They're not the conservative side. They're the side that the FBI knelt to last year. They knelt to the people that destroyed the government buildings in Portland, including government buildings. And what about during the Kavanaugh hearings? When they invaded the Capitol then, where are those people? Why aren't they in jail? That was interfering with official meetings. Because the FBI is your enemy. It is the enemy of righteousness, justice. What does it say on there? On their little thing, right? fidelity, bravery, integrity. You disgusting, despicable Ray, you're a disgusting worm. But you're not the only one, of course. It goes way, way back. All right. I think I kind of explained some of the things tonight. Again, we'll end on this thing with Romans 13. You can look at it two ways. One, when it says governments are placed in position by God so that evil can be punished. But what if the government is doing evil? Then that scripture doesn't apply to the government that's doing the evil. It has now become your enemy. It has now become an enemy to God. And then the other possibility, which is the one I go with, the Romans had that put in there to help shut down the Messianic movement so they wouldn't fight against Rome anymore. And they would pay their taxes. Oh, taxes. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's how we're going to show our love for our fellow man. That's how we're going to do our righteousness and piety, by loving our fellow man and paying taxes, giving them the tools wherewith they can kill us. And that is what they are doing. Where do you think they got the money to give these free GMIs all over the world? From you. They stole it from you. All right, that's all I got Saturday night. I'm sure you got better things to do than hear me, you know. Again, I know I look pretty funny here, but I've already explained what that's about. Go back to the beginning if you don't know. It'll probably take me another week to really heal up well. There are a couple of spots that may not heal up at all, they're telling me, because of the way that the tissue is, and that may very well be. But I don't worry about things like that for reasons I'm not going to explain here. Okay. All right. Hope you all have a good night. I'll probably see you again in a few days. Things are going downhill real fast. There are a few people standing up. A few states are taking some stands and all that. It's not going to be enough, ladies and gentlemen. It is true that we have a leader that is untouchable. And we're seeing his heart and mind being poured out, his spirit being poured out on many, many people around the world. Not the majority. The majority are either not hearing it or rejecting it. But those who are standing up against it are hearing their leader. And this is a leader that they can't incarcerate, that they can't tap his phone, that they can't run a false flag on. And they're trying to shut off that communication with the spray, with the GMIs, to take over your heart and soul, to make you something other than what God created you to be. They're not going to succeed, but the destruction is going to be apocalyptic. And that's really not a good word. Apocalypse just means revelation. That's all it means, but it's come to mean destruction. Probably Armageddon's a better term for that. Okay. Yeah, BP Earthwatch. Yeah, Jesse, that's right. Paul was put in place by Rome. That's right, to change the narrative. Yeah, that's true. But Christians won't understand that. I'm not saying Paul did a lot of good things. And James wasn't perfect either, Jesse. And maybe you and I can talk about that sometime. There are some real problems with James. When I wrote my book, The Crimson Thread, I showed that there was an animosity, or at least an opposition, between his older brother Jesus and himself and brothers. And I do believe that's the way it was. Because I do believe there was a resurrection of the man that we know as Jesus. That was not his name, that was his calling, as you know, Jesse. The Shroud of Turin just has, and just my own experiences tell me different. Although, I got to tell you, and I know I've talked to Felicia's here, Felicia Lockhart, certainly Roosevelt, and some others. I lost my wife back in 2008 from ovarian cancer. A woman that, talk about being equally yoked. That was it. But that loss, even with what I know and some of the subsequent communications I had, which weren't conjuring up spirits. It wasn't the devil. Certain things were allowed. Some of the things that happened showed me that, that she's still there. Well, at least that's how I look at it. And then this thing with Bettina hit me really, really hard. Nancy Morgan hard, as most of you know. I'm still not over that, and I probably never will be. Um, and I won't go any further than that. But some things, as you know, happened there. There were some lights that occurred, and a couple of videos when I did, and one was done on my camera, so it wasn't like it was done when it was being uploaded to my video recorder. When it was being uploaded to YouTube, that's not when it happened. And it wasn't on a live stream at that point where it could have been manipulated either. This was on the original video, and yes, it's there. The little fluttery thing, and then the little orb that comes down and follows the flag and then goes back down my shoulder and flat. Yeah, something was going on there, and I do believe that there's still that comrade brother sister relationship. Those relationships are still there, but we're never exactly sure here, right? That's part of the test, and it's tough. It's tough. All right, that's all I've got. I'm not sure when I'll be up again. I always say that, but I did want to cover those two things tonight. Thank you, Roosevelt. Again, I know that's not in the detail that you'd like, but I think it's pretty direct. It's simple. And if any of you want to know a better explanation, go see David Knight's show from Friday, and I think it's in the last hour. He may even have it on the. He breaks it down by time code, so you might be able to just listen to that part. Roosevelt might even know what it is, so maybe I'll give Roosevelt a chance to post that if that's possible. Yeah, I believe that too, Roosevelt. God's not going to allow this to be destroyed. He needs this school. This is a school, and it's something that we all go through. So, yeah, he won't. The thing that I worry about is that he's not there all the time for everyone. And we could say that, well, the remnant's the only people that deserve to be saved, but I can't look at it that way because that's very presumptuous on my part. That's how I feel. So, as a matter of fact, I thought about this today, talking about Bettina, Nancy Morgan Hart. I remember she did a video where she was so disgusted with the American people in particular. She came out and she said, not exactly, but it was something like this. She said, when I look around and I see these soy boys walking around in their masks, when I see how people are bowing down to this Leviathan, behemoth, disgusting, wicked government, and how they're being led around by the nose by these maybe they should be culled. Maybe they're proving to themselves and to God that they don't deserve this life, this chance, and they deserve to be culled. She said a couple times, I remember she told me this directly, and I think she even tweeted it out once. This is her quoting. She says, I have the talent, or the gift, I think she said. I have the gift to be extraordinarily cruel. And in that situation, looking around, I see these soy boys and these people wearing these masks and doing, bowing down to this system, and they have, they might as well just toss themselves into the fiery furnace and not even wait. But that hurts me. I don't want to see it. But I'm also not in control. And we could talk a lot about when God told his people to go, annihilate certain communities. Oh, I didn't like that, but boy, I can sure see why sometimes, especially when the kids don't have a chance to grow up in a decent, honest, righteous society. And many of them being killed before they even take their first breath. And now they want to kill them post birth. And they'll get there. All right. Y'all take care. Have a good night.